Hi, I'm Dr. Nicole Lipkin, and this is the Hey Kiddo podcast where we talk about all things parenting. And today I'm really excited. I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Bre Davis-Shoemaker about movement and mental health. Bre is a doctor of occupational therapy and she specializes in pediatrics, and she's all about using movement to enhance child development, regulation, and quality of life. And she's also the author of the Movement Toolkit series and Becoming the Best Me. Bree's also a nutrition coach and actively engaged in the CrossFit Kids community. Welcome, Bree. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Super excited to chat. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So let's dive into it. From your professional experience and also just everything you've seen, how does physical activity impact a child's ability to learn and regulate emotions? And are there, yeah, dive into that before I keep on asking.
Yeah, so there's 1,000 different studies and pathways of how basically movement can impact your brain and body connection. And coming from an occupational therapy standpoint, we use a lot of movement in our practice to do regulation, whether it's sensory regulation that directly impacts our behavior regulation. And we use movement as a tool as well as kind of for parents to use as home education programs to basically meet your kids' needs. And so, something all of us innately as humans do is have a need to move our bodies. And my thesis and background kind of goes into how does movement help kids learn better? And I kind of did this in the classroom setting specifically, but you can do this at home. You can do this during therapy. You can do this in sports things and stuff like that as well. But basically, to try to make it into a short, little understandable bit, when your body starts moving, awesome things happen in your brain. And so some of those things are creating new neural pathways and giving your body and like a mood enhancement. So you're able to focus better. You're able to feel happier. For kids, if we pull in that fun aspect, they're able to engage in what they're doing more. And then the one really cool hormone that gets released is called BDNF. It's called brain derived growth factor. And this is essentially like if you imagine fertilizer for your grass. That's what happens in a kid's brain and our adult brains. And it basically makes more the ability to create more neural pathways and opens up all of those atmospheres to your hippocampus to be able to learn better and create like increased memory, as well as meet some of those needs that if you're feeling like your kids are getting jittery or they're sitting too long in the classroom seats and need to move, this can kind of help impact the way that their brain is able to focus too. So, yeah,
Huh.
lots of different avenues on that I can keep exploring, but that's kind of like the little snippet.
Okay, so basically it's really good for our kids' brains. Are there specific movements that are really good?
Basically anything that your kid finds fun and to move their body. So we like to focus on mostly in having some intensity. So the more intense an activity is for kids, getting their heart pumping gets more blood flowing throughout their entire body. So obviously to their brain, and that helps release more of those awesome things in your brain that help you attend better, feel happier, feel more confident because your mood is increasing. You're releasing serotonin and all of these things that help you essentially some of these studies we've looked at, movement can help impact kids not only on the attention ADHD level, but with anxiety and depression and feeling sad because the release of those like serotonin and those happy hormones per se help change their mood.
Hmm.
So kind of anything that they find fun that gets them high intensity and moving. So whether that's playing a game, maybe that's doing like a actual workout with mom and dad where you're like squatting and throwing a ball around or playing a sport. It's really no one specific one size fits all, which kind of makes that cool because no kid is one size fits all.
Right. So is there like, I'm thinking of like my son, for example, Charlie. He's definitely a homebody. He likes to be inside and he likes to like focus in on his activities. He's not the biggest mover. So what about the kids that aren't like super athletic, that don't like being outside all the time and playing? Like, what can you do? What can you do to spice that up? Get them
Yeah, so
moving?
I
And how long too?
yeah, so I mean ultimately starting small. So studies show anywhere from like 2 to 4 minutes of high intensity movement can impact the brain. So you could make a goal of like 5 minutes a day, even. And some kids are going to be more than that. Some kids are going to need that movement for their sensory system. Like, hey, I can run hard and crash and do workouts and swing from monkey bars, or if you have like a workout gym in your garage or something at home, like they could go for a whole half an hour, and maybe that's what they need is some of that impact loading and that vestibular work that helps your body and brain regulate. But for some of those kids who don't enjoy doing movement necessarily, finding something that is motivating to them. So whether that's intrinsic or extrinsically, for a lot of kids too, it's starting young. So it's if kids learn by shared attention and imitation. If us as parents and teachers or coaches or wherever we're impacting these children in their lives can start to add movement in so it seems like an everyday thing, whether
Right.
that is a workout or it's maybe our little yoga challenge of the day, or before breakfast we're going to get in a few like burpee high fives together, or we're going to do something after school for 10
Dance
minutes.
party.
Yeah, dance
Yeah.
party. So figuring out what works for them. And so there really is no right answer. But if he ends up liking, there's a certain TV show, or some of our kids are on video games or books, if we can create even a game or a workout surrounding like Bluey or Minecraft and try to draw them in there, I like to do that. And then I also like to encourage parents to ask their kids before they work out, move, whatever they're doing, how do you feel? And then ask them afterwards, because with studies that are shown, and then in some of the books that I've released, I have kind of like a little survey, is kids will start to realize like, wow, I feel more regulated. All those happy hormones are pumping through my
Yeah.
body. I feel happier. I feel more focused. I just feel good and like confident in moving my body. So that's something too I try to slowly across time encourage, whether it's in therapy and treatment or in my coaching world, ask their kids, because as adults, we kind of know after you can get yourself moving,
Yeah.
the afterwards generally you feel better. So,
Right. And
yeah.
I think those are also, you're a nutrition coach. I think those are also vital questions to have your kids start thinking about and communicating after they make a choice about what they're putting in their mouth. That make it like if they're
100%.
making a choice to eat. I've always done this with Charlie. Like when he makes a choice to eat a candy, how does he feel after? And he's
Yeah.
able to identify he doesn't feel that great after
Yeah.
versus eating broccoli. How do you feel after?
Yeah, we like to talk about that in like my therapy aspect, is what are your sometimes foods and what are your all the times foods, and not necessarily like going at the aspect of these foods are good or bad for you, but just
Right.
like you said, like how does it make you
How do you feel?
feel? And then how much is it going to fuel your body? Like if you were going to go to soccer practice and you want to run the whole hour, is this, candy bar gonna fuel you the whole time? Or maybe you should eat like, some apples and some, peanut butter or whatever. So,
Mhm. So
yeah.
getting your kids so what you're suggesting is it doesn't have to be so long, can be anywhere from, like, 4 minutes to beyond. Something your kid finds fun and rewarding for themselves,
Mhm.
and having them start to communicate about how they feel before and after. Like,
Yeah,
let
and
them to,
then
like, process how that feels.
yeah, and I just think that last aspect is getting it in your everyday life. So it doesn't seem like this chore. It just seems like if you start it early and it's in your routine, like you brush your teeth every day, well, you should, and you don't think about it necessarily. It's just one of those things where you're like, here's our movement thing for the day, and get it in your daily life so much that it's not this thing that you have to think about or this chore that you have to do. So,
Well, talk about that. Talk about, some creative ideas about integrating it into daily life.
yeah. So if you're not necessarily in like the let's go create a fun workout in our garage or in our bonus room or in our whatever, whether your kid is motivated by maybe using dumbbells or kettlebells or hanging from a pull-up bar or doing, gymnastics or learning some of that, there's a bunch of different games and ideas as far as like we're going to pull out an Uno card deck and we're going to assign different movements to that. And we're going to play our game upstairs in the comfort of our home, but maybe if the color is red, we're going to do some squats together. If the color is blue, we're going to do some, sit-ups together. So
Mm,
adding in that into what you would already be doing. So if you're already playing games, go ahead and add that in. Maybe you're more of like, hey, we all like to go ride our bike and go for walks. You can add in like, hey, maybe every block or every time we see like an I Spy game outside, we add in a movement. Or it could be as simple as like, hey, I'm going to decide that today on Mondays, we're going to do some stretching and some breathing. And it's going to be less than 5 minutes. And here's my goal. And we're going to do it, after dinner. And then maybe after you come home from school on Wednesdays, you're going to do something that spikes your heart rate. So you figure out, like, hey, can you do something as fast as you can in 1 minute? So, like, as many burpees as you
mm.
can in 1 minute, or So kind of thinking about themes too. So kids love like things that are novel, so not doing the same thing over and
Mm.
over, but also kind of routine and expected. And then kids also learn by repetition. So it's like if you find something that works or you already have something in your daily life, just squeezing that little piece of movement in can help them stay engaged, but also keeping it novel enough that they're going to not get bored and not want to keep doing it. But a thousand different ways to do it.
A
But
thousand
again, like
different ways.
with yeah, OT in everyday life, like we try to just tailor it to the patient and the family's needs. And so ultimately, like there is no right or wrong way. It's just, are you moving? Is your kid having fun? And then they'll start to learn to move well and want to continue. So,
But is the takeaway there that they're not in most educational settings? Like if we're talking about 5 and above, like so kindergarten and above, in most educational settings, would it be fair to say you also need to integrate it at home? They're not getting enough at school?
100%. I think
Okay.
if I had the best possible, if I could control everything, I'd say like teachers, like, let's make this a part of everyday life and, add in those movement breaks and add in, keep the recesses. But ultimately controlling the school setting, we all know like we're never going to be able to have as much impact as we can. And so if you do end up with an awesome teacher or school that can, that's awesome. But if you really take like it into your own hands and say at home, this is what we're going to do and these are our family goals, they're going to like kids are going to want to do what their parents are doing and they're going to learn best by what we make time and effort for. So yeah, if it
Okay.
happens at home, that's the foundational piece. That's
That's
where
the
they're
foundational.
stick
Mhm.
with them. Yeah, yeah.
So I know you're saying it could be anywhere from 4 minutes to anything, but like give me your ideal amount of time for a kid moving at home.
Yeah, so if we think about attention, like there's kind of this magic formula and a thousand different things go into attention, but say we have a neurotypical kid, generally their attention span is either their age or 2 to 3 times their age. So
Hmm.
say you have a 5-year-old, their attention is going to be maybe 5 minutes at best or twice that, so 10 minutes. If you get 15 minutes, that's, because they're super engaged, they're having fun, and it's amazing. So you have whatever that age group is from their age, so our 5-year-old, you have 5 to 15 minutes to squeeze something in that's going to be successful. And so I always say like our best minimal goal is trying to match their age.
Love that.
So like time wise, if you have a 5-year-old, we'll try for 5 minutes, but if you don't get there, that's okay. Yeah. So kind of that little
Love
formula
that.
can help have a peace of mind of thinking, but there's also, you come home and you want to spend time together and play those games, and maybe you have homework or you have sports practice. So some of that is less, and that's okay.
I got you. I got you. I love that. And I love having a formula to apply because sometimes it can be very it can be very confusing. So it sounds like any kind of activity though, whether it's a dance party, whether it's squats, and again, starting from 5 up, like burpees are okay.
Yeah, I mean, anything is okay. Like sometimes we think about the foundational movements as like, well, kids as little as, when they can walk are trying to bear crawl and get that impact loading. A lot of our
Yeah.
fun animal movements. Kids are wanting to somersault or log roll and incorporate that vestibular aspect that in turn helps with body awareness and coordination. And so if we can build them first off body weight movements, whether that's dancing or crawling or just having fun manipulating their own bodies, and that's going to help carry over their coordination and balance and those skills to help build for like core to extremity sports, like then learning to get good at throwing a ball or doing a sport specific activity. So yeah, thinking about anything, but also thinking about just using their own body and how we can use that, whether it's, through fun movements or through kind of that calm regulation yoga type stretching to meet their own needs.
Okay. When do you allow like what age do you allow kids to start using weights? I said there's
um,
also your CrossFit background.
Yeah, so foundation for that is kids always must move their actually this is adults too. If you can move your if you can move your body well, which takes a lot of time and repetition. Like
Does.
this isn't just like, okay, my kid starts this week and next week they're ready. This is years of learning to move their body well. And
Mhm.
then going through, oh, my kid out of the growth spurt, or now they're like an awkward preteen and their bodies and arms all like gangly and different. So it's if your kid can move their body well, you can implement like, you know, moving your stuffed animals or carrying a ball or a backpack or a cone or something fun. But we really don't implement weight until maybe like 5 to 6, and that's something that's like maybe a light dumbbell or a light kettlebell, and because that kid is motivated by it. So that's the kid that's probably the parents are lifting weights. And
Okay.
some kids may never get there. But then also thinking about like the two biggest pieces that are hard is remembering kids they're not in puberty yet. So they don't get hypertrophy and all of these like strength
Mm,
gaining things as our preteens, teens, adults do. So they're not going to gain strength in a way that's going to make them stronger through weight. They're going to gain strength through repetitions and learning how to move their body better. And then it's hard as an adult too if you see a kid that is really talented. And this was hard for me in the beginning of coaching. If you're like, this kid could go so far, I could give them a weight or I could put them on the gymnastic bar and see them excel. Ultimately, like it's up to them. So even if we want to push them to do what we want them to
right.
do, because they could have potential, if they're not interested, then we don't want to burn them out or make them hate the sport that they're doing. So
Right. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So about 5 or 6 if they're interested.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. In your movement toolkit series, you talk about the importance of building physical literacy. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah. So physical literacy in its most basic form for maybe starting from even like 2, if we start moving, is like if kids start learning, what does my body do? How does it move? What is it capable of? Starting just there, how does your body move?
Mhm.
From there, physical literacy could be how can and should my body move safely or efficiently? And that could be for, you know, as adults carrying a heavy groceries in or, reaching something from the top shelf or squatting down in an appropriate way that's going to make your body last as long as possible and avoid injury. But then it goes all the way to kind of that sport specific stuff. So if you're wanting to learn how to be better at soccer or be better at whatever sport you're doing, the physical literacy aspect of that ties in like all those specific complex skills. And so basically, physical literacy is learning how to move your body, learning how to move your body well. And then if we tie in the kids aspect, learning how to make it fun so that way we keep doing it. Yeah, if that kind of makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that does. And it's so is it integrating it into kind of your family values then?
Yeah, yeah. So I think making it so one, it's just a part of your family's daily life and something that's important, which I know maybe the United States is not like the top resource of, health and wellness per se right now, which I know is like a huge aspect of all of us. That's a lot of our goals too, and our shared mission is to get people healthier. And that ties into physically and mentally, and those kind of have that direct impact of if
Yeah.
are you moving your body, is your mental health good?
Yeah.
So we have ties to kind of both of those. So I think having families think even with moving your body, not as like a physical aspect, but how can we address our health holistically? And that includes
Mm.
moving your body. Yeah, kind of.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. What about kids like that all of a sudden get their bursts of energy right before bed?
Yeah. So a few different aspects that go into this. Sometimes this could be like a control thing or they're not ready for bed. And, but some of it too is like, did we actually meet their needs throughout the day? So, how many of these kids were waking up and going and sitting through school all day, sitting down in
Mm.
a desk? Maybe they didn't have recess because it was taken away or rainy. Maybe they came home and had to do homework. So, were
Mm.
their physical needs and their sensory needs met throughout the day? And or where they came home and they were on a tablet or on the computer or watching
Right.
TV. So taking that
Right.
into consideration, not only their physical health, but now their mental health of like, oh, I just need to move. And now you're feeling overstimulated and dysregulated. And so they're seeking this crazy run around crash. Maybe they're
Mhm.
jumping on the bed or crashing on the couches. And that's because they're overstimulated or dysregulated. So sometimes too, I have a lot of kids who come in and whether they're maybe on the spectrum or have ADHD or have sensory needs, or they're just like, we need help with routine, we'll schedule in a movement piece before bed. And maybe that's where their family does it. And I'm not saying like, okay, put your pajamas on, do your movement piece, crawl into bed. It's thinking ahead and creating that family routine of
Right.
after dinner, if you can create that crazy movement piece where we're having a dance party or doing our workout or doing an animal movement relay or something, and then
Right.
creating that can we do breathing and yoga or calming exercises to get ourselves prepared for bed? How can that nighttime routine help prepare us to now transition to have a regulated state to need to go to bed per se?
I see. So if you're doing it, because I'm hearing you say two things. I'm hearing you say the breathing and the stretching, the yoga-like movements are also equally important to be integrating into your child's life
Yeah.
as the more active movement.
Yeah. So if we think about using kind of like a trampoline versus like rocking a baby. Well, a trampoline is going to help arouse the brain and get you excited and use energy, but then your brain's going to be like ready to learn, super active versus if you're like rocking a baby or someone's doing stretching or someone's doing something that's more of like whole deep breathing, that calmer, less arousal state, then you can kind of manipulate what your brain and body does of like, if I can get it really high and excited and get my energy out, now can I bring it back down to be ready to sleep and stay regulated? So
Mm,
using movement to our benefit in both ways. And I guess that comes to physical literacy, right? Like what types of movement are there and how do each of those impact our bodies is super important to kind of realize like what kind of movement do I need, and it doesn't have to be like super intense all the time or
right,
super.
right. So that's interesting, and helping a child get to that place where they can determine it, and us as adults,
Yeah, and
where
helping
we
parents realize like, well, what happens when my kid moves really fast? What does their brain and body do? What happens when my kid does this calm movement? What does their brain and body do? So kind of having these pieces to pull from, like a toolkit per se of like, this is what my kid needs right now, or I know that this happens when my kid does this, so this is what I need. So exploring and having the resources to feel educated as a parent too.
Okay, so when your kid, like, if you're noticing, like, well, what are the like, let's give parents who are listening the toolkit.
Yeah.
So what are the signs that you need to go have your dance party
Yeah.
versus what are the signs that you need to like do some breathing and stretch?
Yeah, so most of the time, sometimes they look similar. So if your kid is feeling dysregulated, or you feel like they're getting angry, or they're getting fidgety, or they're already crashing and seeking their own way to get their energy out, like you're like, don't jump on the bed or don't go on the couch, or some kids seek deep pressure, whether it's kind of that negative aspect of like now they're hitting or they're biting or they're starting to like fight with their siblings. That aspect is like, well, how can we release their energy and get them that high arousal state that's fun but meeting their own needs? So if that could happen during bedtime, that could happen. A lot of times we see dysregulation happen immediately after you get off like a device. So maybe your kid starts to
Yes.
get upset after they were just zoned out on TV or zoned out on their tablet. Now they're going to get mad. So can you transition that to now go re-regulate their body and do some movement piece there?
Like through high, like when your kid is like is not regulated after TV.
Yeah.
Is that like high movement or is that
So I guess it depends on the kids, but for most of the kids I see, after you're dysregulated, you may need some deep breaths and some calming, but a lot of times it's like, let's go get some energy out because you were just sedentary. Your brain was just not doing movement. So if you can say, hey, like, let's go do a dance party, or let's go swing on the swings, or let's go do like a 2-minute workout of this fun like squat high fives, and we're gonna deadlift some things and bear crawl down and back, how that can help. And then some of these kids where that's where maybe they're like not into the movement, but you're giving them the regulation piece of, can you go punch your punching bag because you're already trying to punch something or bite something? Can you go
right?
squish your pillow, or more of those like heavy work sensory activities? And then
Mm,
from there, I always talk about like cooling your body down. So can then you do after you do that high intensity thing, what's going to help regulate your body, release those happy hormones, kind of give you more of that like the ability for your brain to attend to a task.
mhm,
Now, can you
mhm.
do some breathing and some stretching or slowing movements down to now make your body, you were already dysregulated here, and now you helped your body doing something specific to help get that energy out, now come back down so that you're able to not be in like the red zone per se, or this chaotic
Right.
overstimulated mode to, yeah, hopefully go to bed or do a learning task.
So, when you tie this into mental health and emotional well-being and resilience and all of that, like there's such a connection. There's
Yeah.
such a connection. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, it excites me because there's so many avenues you can go. But thinking about if you just move your body, there's obviously all these brain impacts I've talked about to help with
Mhm.
learning, help with regulation. But if you also learn to move your body, you're learning how to be comfortable in your own skin. You're learning to be confident and like, I can do hard things. Maybe you just, tried to bear crawl down and back for a minute and you're like, I can't go that far. And then you just like did more than you thought you could. Then
Mhm.
that's super exciting. So you're building confidence. If you're doing this with siblings or your parents, you're building teamwork. Maybe you're building leadership because you're going to have to, teach one of your siblings to do it. Or as a team, you're going to have to collaborate and communicate to meet this fitness challenge together. And it also gives that confidence of like, if you know what this movement does for your body and how you feel after, then you're going to have like this more initiation and advocacy and being able to take things in your own hands of being
Yeah.
like, I think I need a break or I think I need to move my body. So the confidence that comes with that, and then just the life skills, right? Like if you can do hard things or you can push yourself really hard for 1 minute, if that's our workout or movement, you realize like I can work hard, I can do hard things, and you start to gain some of that growth mindset. And
Yeah.
there's that goal setting that, I mean, that's just not fitness related, that's school related, that's career related, that's relationships
Life
related.
related. Mhm.
So, yeah, life related in general.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah,
so the tie-in is so clear. You started about like starting from infancy, like very early age, like once the crawling happens and all of that. What if you're starting later?
there's never a bad time to start. Like, it's never too late. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're an adult and you had a complete sedentary lifestyle before, like, it's never too late to have a positive
Mhm.
impact on your brain and body. And I think that's what I'm so excited about too, is like, if we can teach kids early, then they're going to have that forever. Where now I feel like a lot of our education piece and why I've like been writing books and teaching parents how to do this is because a lot of us grew up with only that sport specific outlet. So we don't know how to move our bodies or what to do healthy in everyday life once sports stop. So
Yeah.
if we can educate our parents on this and they can help educate our kids, then eventually this is like kind of like preventative care. Like we will never have to teach this because it will be like innately just a part of our daily lives.
Right.
Um, so I think having that aspect of like it's never too late and like here's all the resources and just try. And maybe your goal is like it's super overwhelming and you need mentorship or you need a accountability group or little goals and check marks to say, "Hey, like I need daily reminders to do this." And my goal is 1 minute a day or it is 5 minutes a day, that's okay and that something is better than nothing.
Right. So it's just about starting anytime. And it's interesting that you said that like as adults, like if when sports ends, it's kind of like this ends. But I think there's also the mentality, at least I have this, like I do my workout, but then the truth is I'm sitting in front of Zoom all day. My
Yeah.
body needs to desperately move throughout the day, which I'll do standing up and down, but like that's not I'm not serving my body. A lot of us are not serving our bodies. And so a
Yeah.
lot of us are not actually carrying out what we need to do and being maybe role modeling it.
I mean, it's hard because we live in this technology age of like, it's amazing, like the things we can get from technology now that we couldn't even like 5 years ago is so
Mhm.
great. But yeah, it's kind of like creating this environment of, and we even see it in like our physiology as adults, is like people are getting more of like that neck hunch and,
Yes.
we're sitting down and we have more back problems because we're sitting in this like L angle all day. And that's happening to our kids too. So it's like if we could change the world by adding little movement pieces in to daily life at home and,
Yeah.
in the classroom. But if us parents start really saying like, hey, this is how things work and this is how my kid learns better and this is how their behaviors feel better and they're more confident,
Mhm.
and teach these kids that, and then they start bringing it into the classroom or their everyday life, then we're kind of starting this new generation of kids that are advocating for themselves and that are
Yeah.
understanding the importance that this has on their own brain and body.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. No, I think it's so critical. And our
Yeah.
bodies keep what is that? Our bodies keep the score. That's a book. Like
Yeah.
they keep the score. They know like they tell us. It's just whether we listen or not. And
Yeah.
I again, I like listening to you. I'm recognizing when the day's over and we all kind of regroup for dinner and like or come together, like I'm pretty lazy at that point. My
Yeah.
husband's pretty lazy at this point. Like it's so it's also we need to kind of reframe and model how we're showing up for those
Yeah. And
few hours before bed.
yeah, I think it's like if we can just have a resource of some easy things to do, then it feels less daunting just to do it. And like you can pull this activity or this activity that's already kind of made for you
Done
if
for
we
you.
had like a list and instead of you having to come up with it yourself. And that's why I'm so big in like the kids programming I do or the challenges and the stuff I put on my Instagram is we always have to make so many decisions throughout the day that if we can just say, I'm gonna do this today because that's what our programming said to do. Like granted, if you're educated, you can choose whatever you want. But if not, you're like, this is what I'm going to do today and it's brainless and you're going to just get started because I think that's the hardest part and even for me is the days I'm like oh like I'm so tired if I'm like my whole goal is to just go warm up like I'm not even going to do a workout I'm just going to go warm
Mhm.
up that usually halfway through my warm up I'm like okay I got this so
Right. Right,
just
right,
getting
right.
started I think helps
And
but
I think you make a lot of a lot, yeah, and we will have your Instagram in the show notes. But I think that that is something like we do make so many choices and having it already prepared for us. This is what we're gonna do is everything. It makes
yeah.
such a huge difference. You know, there's there's also a lot of misconceptions about fitness for kids. And what are they and how do you address them? What are some of the like naysayers saying? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean there's so many different opinions and there's just so many ways to move your body. I think one of the biggest things we get in like my from my CrossFit background from
Mhm,
encouraging kids to move your body and do high intensity and learn new skills and then sometimes the weight is like, you know, moving weight or kids doing certain things like it could hurt them and it could hurt their growth plates or they're gonna,
mhm,
it's gonna damage them for life. And it's like, well, 100%. There are ways that you could give a kid something that's inappropriate, like, "Here's this 45-pound barbell, go do something with it," and they're gonna get hurt. But I think the misconception comes from, like, us adults being not thinking so simplistically and, like, if we can just get them to move their body and build this foundation over these years of, we're gonna just do body weight movements, and then maybe we give them an implement to move, or we're going to work on like these physical skills then they're going to build so much repetition and these neural pathways in their brain
mhm,
and coordination that's going to if we focus on that early then yeah by the time they're in sports or maybe wanting to lift weights like they're already going to be moving well because they've already done like 10,000 squats in our squat Simon Says and our squat bingo and our squat relay races and so they're going to know how to move their bodies whereas like something we're seeing to like that's kind of been a huge thing since COVID and I'm not talking about like COVID the disease itself or whatever that whole aspect. I'm talking about like the what COVID did to our environment of kids and telehealth or more technology and during the time period of like the CDC started to take away crawling as like a developmental milestone and it's like we're seeing our kids
mm,
not move enough that we're having to adjust and like skip things to say it's okay. And it's like, well, what if we reverse all of this and say, let's just focus on moving their bodies young and putting effort into that from when they're crawling to their walking to their one, their two, their three. Yeah, it's kind of like a random tangent, but yeah, I think some of the things with fitness is just it takes effort. People aren't educated on how to do it, and people don't know how to make it fun. Like, it doesn't have to be a workout where you go like as us adults like go suffer in the gym. Like it can be
right,
fun. So,
right,
and it should
right,
be fun because they're gonna want to continue it then.
right.
So,
I mean, you even said like squat Simon Says. That sounds fun. Like that sounds
yeah,
I am doing
versus
that
like
today with Charlie. That sounds fantastic.
yeah, like instead
Um,
of being like, let's go do 100 squats for time because it's good for us, like no kid's gonna be like, ha, I'm not doing that.
right.
So
So what I'm hearing you say, similar to mental and emotional health, there were some significant shifts after the time period of COVID,
yes.
with children's movement.
Yeah, which in theory, you're like, if we saw a decline in mental health and well-being,
Yeah.
then we also saw a decline in movement and more technology. It's like, okay, maybe it's all like not, is it causation? Is it correlation? It's like, well, I feel like they're all pretty going much hand in hand. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So any other like If your child is extremely resistant, are there any other tips? I understand the fun, I understand all of that, but any other tips that you would use to encourage them that, for really young kids and some older kids?
Yeah. I mean, I really feel like it's finding what is important to them. And so what's important to them is going to be different for kids of different ages, but also different maturity levels and kind of sometimes pulling some of those bad habits. Like if we see, when you say that, I'm thinking about a lot of my patients who come in who are struggling with like not technology addiction, but being entertained by something that's in our face that's so easy. Like how do you pull away from some of the things to make fitness a priority? So I think finding something that's fun, and maybe it is like we're going to play Minecraft tag, or we're going to play Minecraft dance party, or we're going to pull, maybe I can't pull you away from the TV, so we're going to like when this certain word is said on TV, we're going to do a certain movement, or if there's a commercial break,
Mm,
we're going to do this. So I think about how can we get our kids motivated? And for some, it's going to be easier than others. We're going to like say, hey, come try this game. Where others, it's going to be a lot harder. And so, how can we implement movement into their daily life that seems feasible and small? A lot of I have like my foundation of pillars in my book is fun, simple, and successful. So we want to
mm,
think about how is it fun for them, and maybe that's weird, and it's their idea or it's our weird idea of how to make it fun.
yeah.
It's simple, so it's attainable, and it seems like it's not this big complex thing to wrap their head around, and it's successful. So how can we give them a task where they successfully complete it first so they feel confident and want to come back for more? So for maybe it's this kid who really doesn't want to move. It's like, hey, before we, after dinner, can you let's roll a dice 3 times, or you choose the number on the dice. Maybe it's one. I'm gonna roll that dice and we're gonna do that many of one repetition, whether it's a squat or a burpee or a yoga pose hold. So doing something first that's so small that you can build on so they're successful and want to come back for more and aren't scared of it, I guess. And
Mm,
that could start
okay.
with 1 minute. So
Okay. And it's not
yeah,
about leaving the house. Like there's all these little things that can just happen right in your living room.
yeah, yeah.
Or whatever.
Living room, backyard, garage,
Okay.
dinner time.
Okay. Okay. You've been mentioning your clients a lot. So let's look at ADHD, kids with attention issues.
Yeah.
I'm assuming movement is quite a big strategy for kids with attention. Like if you have a child who is struggling with a mental health challenge, are there any additional tips that you would provide there? Or is
Um,
it the same kind of strategy?
I mean, I don't want to say movement is one size fits all, but if you can get your body moving and we can figure out, like I keep saying, how it's fun for them, but we
Mhm.
could have a whole list that we could, provide people at the end of this podcast to try, almost like a little like bingo card of I've tried this, I tried this. But if we know that for our attention or ADHD kiddos, they're having trouble attending a task. So we have them do a movement. And, in typical therapy, maybe that's getting on a swing or doing something in that more traditional occupational therapy setting. But if when we move our body, it releases hormones that help us attend to task. It increases our mood and our serotonin and helps us regulate, then it kind of doesn't matter. It's like if there's a kid that's depressed and anxious, well, how can we add movement in to help basically their body work for itself? And
Mhm.
it's where I like to start kids as a foundation, right? Like if we think about what our bodies did way back in the day, we were all like hunter and gatherers and like we were meant to move. And
Yeah.
so the fact we're not moving is impacting a lot of our mental health, and a lot of these things that are coming up for not neurotypical brains. So that's where I like to start. And even like when I collaborate with teachers and for IEPs and 504s, you'll hear a lot of like the stuff that's implemented in there is the kid needs a break. So they need to go run in the hallway or they need
Yep.
to go get in the sensory corner and do something. And it's like, well, if we know that we're doing that in school to help them meet their needs and we could implement that in the classroom or at home or, maybe at home before homework, you practice something that helps you learn, then this kid could maybe do that in the classroom because they know that's going to help them, or do that
Right.
before they get dysregulated and upset when they need to attend to a task or they're feeling depressed and kind of anxious. And so, yeah, a lot of that too is like we're getting some primary care doctors, which I really hope more hop on board, say, instead of prescribing ADHD medication and these anxiety pills for these kids who are sedentary at home and at school and on their tablets, like why can't we prescribe movement as like a prescription and see what happens
Mhm.
there first? Granted, like some people do benefit from medications. I'm not saying that they're not,
Yeah,
but if we
yeah,
start from our foundation as humans, what is that going to do for our brains that were meant to be that way anyways?
right. And that is really like the whole field of kind of therapeutics. And I'm thinking of therapy on the psychological side. It is finding what works for the individual. And so
Mhm.
that might be a mix of movement, talk, all of this, play, all of it, nutrition.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not? Why
Yeah.
not integrate
I
that?
mean, couldn't hurt.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Exactly. It doesn't hurt. Before I ask you my final question, are there any questions I should be asking you that I have not?
I mean, you've touched on pretty much like everything. I wrote down some notes of stuff that I wanted to talk about, and I mean, I feel like I got through all of it. It's just
Okay.
really pushing that importance of movement can be a preventative care and it can be a medicine per se. Like
Yeah,
it can be
definitely.
exactly what our brain and body needs. And instead of
Yeah.
treating, mental health and anxiety and all of these things sometimes and overthinking like how can we treat it? It's like, well, if we could just move and that would treat it in and of itself with some of the supplements of other things. It's like
Yeah. But
simple.
it's move with conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
move with opening up the lines of communication. So, if you were to wrap up your top 5 takeaways from everything that you've said, what are what are the 5 nuggets that you want people walking away with?
I mean, I would say one, just get moving. Whatever
Mhm.
it is, just get moving. I guess number 2 is make it fun, and maybe that's you trying different things to make it fun, you taking snippets from professionals that can help you make it fun. Maybe that's your kid autonomously choosing. I'd say 3, kind of what you just said, keep the lines of communication open. So asking like your kid, "How do you feel right now? How do you feel after? What do you feel like you need?" And maybe your kid doesn't need that, but through conversations and growth mindset talk and checking in with their emotions and one,
Mhm.
learning emotions, like they're going to be able to hopefully figure out how this helps. Yeah, and that it's never too late to start.
Absolutely. That's it. Bree, thank you so much. This was so wonderful and so clear and so like just do it. Just do
Yeah.
it. And I'm going to start today with my kiddo. We're a dance party family, but we're gonna broaden our wings.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
something.
hopefully we can start sharing some more. Like I'll make sure that some of the stuff is on my end, on my Instagram and stuff, but free
Absolutely.
resources to help people get moving too. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. Bree, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful learning from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.